the London starts off with the move. I generally recommend knight f3 first,
Hmm.
and if black goes knight f6, here to move bishop f4. And the
Hmm.
advantage of the London is that it's very easy to play because you will
Right.
basically go for a very similar setup in a lot of games,
Hmm.
right? So let's say black goes e6. How would you continue developing here?
Um, I mean, my thought process would be usually try to like get here and here, and then get
Hmm.
my try to get like a castle.
Right. Yeah. But the disadvantage with the move g3 is that, let's say you put your bishop on g2, it will be kind of stuck looking at this pawn on d5, right? It cannot do too much
Yeah,
in this diagonal, right?
that's yeah.
So I would recommend playing move e3, so then later on you put your bishop on d3, where, especially after black castles, you're looking to his king side already, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That,
and
I do run into that issue a lot where I'll try to get like a good kind of defensive position
mhm.
and get a good castle, but then my diagonal is not in an attacking position.
Right, right. All right. So let's say after e3, many players will play a move like bishop to d6 to
Mhm.
offer the bishop trade here, right?
Right.
Now the move here I would recommend is the move bishop to g3. Because let's say black will take on g3, how do you think you should recapture here?
Um, I would open up here
Mm-hmm.
and then
Perfect.
try to get my diagonal here, so I have a um,
Yeah.
I would open it
And
up like that.
yeah, and by the way, do you know how to draw arrows? So then I can sort of know what you're talking about.
Oh no, how do I do that?
So you can, if you do right click and then
Okay,
sort of point out the move, so just like I did.
okay, got you. So yeah, I would open up that and then
Mm-hmm. Right. So
yeah,
then you have pressure towards here, I
pressure,
guess, right?
pressure there, and then
Mm-hmm.
I could start working here. Um,
Or
but
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I would open up that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's say black were the castle here, right? How would you continue? I think you already talked about a lot of good ideas. Just stay on the same. Okay, so bishop d3 is a very good move.
Mhm.
Um, Now let's say black plays something like, here. How? So you've already done a really good job, right? The bishop on d3 is very well placed. The rook on
Mhm.
h1, right? You're looking towards this h7 point. But ideally, you want to include more pieces into the attack. So how
Right.
would you try to do that here?
Uh,
And one piece that's always very good to include in the attack is the queen.
um, I would have to either go here so I can open
Hmm.
up this
Hmm.
queen in an
Right.
attacking position. That would be
Yeah.
my
So
thought.
I'll yeah. So I like knight at g5 because now your knight is also attacking directly. But the one
Hmm.
drawback is that black can just go pawn h6, and now your
For
knight kind of
sure.
has to move again, right?
Yep.
So generally in these types of positions, you want to put your knight in the middle with knight e5 because here the knight cannot really be challenged,
Right.
and it's really, controlling a lot of squares here.
Hmm.
Now let's say black plays a move like, let's say black goes here, for example. Here you already have a way to win the game, and this is a little trick that's very common in the London.
Um,
So think
uh,
so think
I would
about how
say
you. Oh yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
uh, take here
Mm-hmm. And if black recaptures.
and then go here.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah, queen h5. And now, and there's simply nothing black can do about you taking the knight, right? Because if
Hmm.
black were to move the knight, what do?
Mate.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is a really nice trap in the London, and I'm sure a lot of players will fall for it.
Yeah.
right? So generally in these types of positions, you're very happy when they take on g3, because then you know what to do, right? You just recapture, and if they cancel, you put your bishop here. Then you try to get your knight out of the way, and already you threaten this sacrifice on h7.
Right.
And if they miss it, you win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what you have to keep in mind in case black takes. Now let's say black pushes his pawn to c5, right? He tries to put pressure on your center. I would recommend defending it with pawn to c3. Right here you have a very solid center.
Yeah.
Now let's say black castles. How do you think you should continue development? So we've already developed the knight and the dark square bishop. We still have to bring out this knight and this bishop. So where do you think you should put those two minor pieces?
I would say here first, and then here. I don't know if the arrow is drawn or not.
No, I don't think so.
Knight to d2.
Yeah, you want to go knight to d2. Perfect. Yeah. So let's say black goes knight c6. We need to go knight to d2. Perfect. And let's imagine black plays rook to e8. Right? What do you think black tries to do with this move? If black gets another one, what do you think black's going to do? So let's say we go, we make an empty move like this.
Yeah.
What will black play here to give himself more space for his pieces?
I think he'll play. I think he'll try to open up the center. By playing here.
Perfect. Yeah. Black will play pawn e5.
Taker. Open up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can take here. If I take here.
Yeah. And here black is doing perfectly fine, because now his bishop is also free to move out. He has more space in the center, right? And black just has a slightly better position. Right? So we don't want to allow our opponent to play pawn to e5, right? Because that will really free his position. So what can we do to prevent that?
It's either going to be here or here with the knight.
Oh, yeah. So which piece do you think we should?
Probably here would be better.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. We want to put the knight in the center. Bishops generally really work well from afar, but knights for knights to really be very effective, you sort of got to put them in your opponent's face.
Yeah.
Right. So we go knight e5, and just like in this is generally where we want to put the knight in the structure, right? Remember also in this position, to go back real quick, we also put the knight on e5.
Yeah.
Right? So we do the same right here. We go knight e5. All right. Now let's say black goes queen to c7.
Bok gotta go.
So first of all, is black threatening anything here? So let's say white goes pawn a3. What do you think black is going to do?
Maybe an empty move. I mean, it's not really. I think he'll. I mean, he can take, but maybe just an empty move.
Well, so are you sure he cannot take? So what's really important is that generally you want to always consider captures first, right?
Okay.
And
I mean, he can't. He could take.
If you take. Right, and black just wins a pawn here, because if you take, he takes, and black has won a pawn in the process, right?
Right.
And also one little rule of thumb, I would generally, in these types of situations, I would generally recommend taking with the knight first, right?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking like, in what order you should take, like generally knights go before bishops. All right.
Okay.
Now, one little thing. In case black were to take here with a knight on e5, what would you do?
I would take with the pawn
Mm-hmm.
because I would win material. I get to take either or.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now you have a fork on the bishop and the knight. So that's really annoying for black. It's really difficult for black to get rid of this knight on e5. But so black could also take with the bishop. Now we do take with the pawn, and now we push this knight away from the f6 square. And here we can defend this pawn in e5 with someone like f4. And then later on we can try to build up an attack against the black king, right? Because now we've pushed the last defender away from there.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so let's say black plays queen to c7. So we just identified that black is threatening to take here, right? And win a pawn. What should we do about that?
You said take first. Right.
Well, so we can take first, but now we lost our strong knight on the e5 square, right? So ideally we don't want to trade, because once again, this knight is really annoying for black. So how can we reinforce the position of the knight? f4, perfect. Yeah. And now it's even worse for black to take on e5, because now we take with the f pawn, and after we castle on the next move, we can also use this file to attack, right?
Yep.
All right. So after f4, black played pawn to a6. Now, how would you continue here? So you've done a really good job, right? We have a very solid center. We've developed all of our pieces. But with our last move, pawn to f4, we kind of shut out the bishop on g3, right? It's just stuck looking at the pawn on f4. So how can we
I would put it attacking there.
Bishop h4, perfect. We hit the knight. Now let's say black were to move, and we kind of threaten to take this knight here, because if black recaptures, his king would be open, right?
Yeah.
So let's say black would go knight at d7. This would be a serious mistake. But do you have any idea why? And this is another tactical problem. You know, a little exercise. This one is a couple moves deep, so feel free to take your time.
My initial thoughts are here, but he could go here.
Right.
So
yeah. So I really like queen h5, because you attack this pawn and you also attack this pawn, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, indeed, black still has defense with pawn to g6. So you're looking at the right things, but you can put them in a different order, by which will be more effective.
Sacrifice. If he takes, I go here. If he put him in check, if he goes there.
Yeah, here we don't really have a direct follow-up. Right? I mean, we still have some good attacking chances after we take this pawn over here. But black is still in the game, right?
Okay.
But again, you're looking at the right stuff. Just once again, try to, very often if you feel like you're very close, you feel like you have the right idea, sometimes what works is putting the moves in a different order.
Diagonal sacrifice?
And if he takes?
He takes. Check.
Black only has one move. He has to go here. And now I take here. And after king h7.
can't mate them.
Yeah, there's
So
no checkmate. There's no
yeah.
checkmate here, but we don't necessarily have to checkmate, right? So indeed, taking the rook is very good. Because we've given up a bishop, we've won 2 pawns in the process, and we've won a rook, right? So of course that's a very good trade for us, right?
And great position.
Yeah, and still a great attacking position. Because I guess you are familiar with the value of the pieces, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so here we have bishop
Well,
takes h7.
obviously, I know the rook value. The diagonal and knight value is similar, right?
Yeah, the bishops and the knight are kind of worth the same, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
But
I'm aware.
yeah, but generally I would give a slight preference to your bishops. Not by a huge margin, but generally want to keep your bishops on the board slightly over knights. But that's pretty advanced, so don't worry too much about that. But yeah, indeed, bishop takes h7, great, fine. Now let's say after bishop h4, your opponent were to play bishop e7, right? How would you continue here? So again, you've done a really good job. Like most of our pieces are in the game, but chess, I guess, just kind of like football, is a game where we try to have to use all of our pieces, or at least as many as possible. So how can we try to bring in more pieces into the attack? And also, if you're not sure, what is a move that's never bad in these kind of positions?
Yeah, I would castle.
Right, castles, yeah. So castles is more or less always a good move. So if you're not sure you haven't castle yet, it's a good move to make. All right, now let's say black goes pawn to b5. How would you continue here? So here you can add more firepower to the attack. So knight d to f3 is a good move. The only drawback is that it allows this knight to jump on e4, right? And when we hit the knight on d2, it was still controlling this square. But generally, I do like this move. If we get another one, perhaps we could go knight at g5. But there's another way to add more attackers into the attack, to add more pieces. So what else can we do here? Like this knight is doing a good job, this bishop is doing a good job, this bishop over here. Our pawns are very nicely placed. And the knight on d2 is doing a good job of stopping this knight from jumping to e4. So what pieces can we still include?
My queen, but not very. Go here.
Yeah, so queen f3 is a good move. But it's not really clear just yet where the queen is going, right?
Right.
So, but we can play another move. That's kind of similar. And then we can still use our queen later on.
I don't see it.
Well, so think about what pieces we are not using yet, right? But that should still be pieces that we should still be able to get to black's king very quickly.
This rook over here.
So how do we do that? How do we do that?
It's not going to be in great position. I can move my queen, so I have rook.
Right, but it will be difficult to include this rook, right? Because that rook is still far away. But what about this one on f1? It's not too far from the black king, right?
Yeah.
So how can we rook f3? Perfect. Yeah. So rook to f3. And this way we can also include the rook in the attack. So black played bishop to b7. Now where do you think we should go? Like, how do we continue the attack in this position?
One idea I have is
Right, but black will take.
Rook to 3. Or, yeah, rook here.
Yeah, so this is a good way to continue. Now we take the pawn on h7. But black can still defend with the move g6. And the one thing I don't like is that we already gave up the pressure prematurely, right? And generally in a situation like this, black is not in a position to get rid of this pressure here, right? We can choose when we want to release the pressure. So generally you'd really want to keep this tension for as long as possible, unless there's a direct gain, right?
Yeah.
So I would recommend just building up the pressure slowly but surely, and not giving up the bishop for the knight here too early.
Okay. Here.
Also, queen e2 is a good move, but think about the last move we just played, right? You were on the right track earlier.
Okay.
Well, queen of 1. Now it's difficult to imagine how the queen is getting close to the king, right? So think about our last move, right? Rook to f3. How can we get that king? How can we get the rook close to the king? Right, and create. But here we are potentially giving up a pawn in the center, right? In case black takes. Like now we lose. Our pawns are very nicely placed because it supports this knight on e5, right? We know that black can never really take, because again we just recapture with the f pawn. Oh, sorry, we just recapture with the f pawn, and now we have this huge pressure, right, towards f7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we generally want to keep all of the pawns like this. You see, we have a really nice pawn chain. It just supports our pieces, and with our pieces we just play around it, if that makes sense. So, but we just played the move rook f3. So what move can we play now? And you already pointed it out earlier.
Rook to G or H3.
Perfect. So rook h3, perfect. Because now we create a threat towards the pawn on h7, right? We know that, let's say black goes rook a to c8. What do we do here?
Keep adding pressure.
Well, now is a moment when we can already cash in.
Okay.
Right? Think about how the position has changed. Now that exactly bishop takes f6. Let's say black recaptures. And bishop takes h7. Perfect. Right, so that's why we put the rook here. All right. Now, so black saw that. So black played pawn at g6. All right. Now, in this position, we got to think, right? So far, white has pretty much played perfectly. We have this knight on e5, the bishop on d3, this bishop on h4 is placed well, the rook on h3. But we want to get the queen in somehow as well. Right, so we got to think, like, where can we put the queen potentially from where it'll put a lot of pressure on black's king? Well, what would be a good square for the queen? Right, queen f3 is a move. But, okay, right, let me help you out a little bit. White played bishop g5 first. And now black played. So let's say black goes here. Right? How do we add the queen in the attack now? Like, where do we want it? Like, of course we could go at f3, but it's still difficult to see how we are creating threats from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Queen e1, perfect. All right, so where are we going? So let's say black passes. Where do we go with the queen? Perfect. Yeah, we go to h4. Right now we put pressure on the knight and towards the pawn on h7. Okay, so this is really the plan you got to keep in mind. So after bishop g5, black took on e5. So how should we recapture? F takes, perfect. Black went knight here. And how do you think we should deal with this stare down of the bishops on g5 and e7? So the question is always like, should we take or should we let the opponent take? What do you think intuitively? And when I mean like, should you let the opponent take, like, yeah, exactly. You should add in another piece. So in case they take, they improve the position of your pieces, right? Whereas, let's say you would have taken, you would have improved his rook, because now the rook is defending this pawn over here. So knight f3 is a really good move. The only drawback is that now it's difficult for the queen to join, right? Because we blocked the path.
Mm-hmm.
So queen g4 is even better. All right.
Yeah.
So black played queen at d8. Now white played queen h4. Right. So if black takes over here, we take on h7, and if the king moves over, how would you continue the attack here?
Check.
So here, I feel like the check is not really working out, right? Because the king kind of escapes.
Okay, we go back.
So you just got to try to add in more attackers again. And just make sure that the king doesn't escape. Rook f1, perfect. And now black's in trouble, because we hit the f7 pawn, and the problem for black is if he plays queen e7 or rook e7, he's blocking the king's path, right? Then we go queen h8 and checkmate.
Mm-hmm.
So black doesn't really have a good way to defend this pawn over here. I mean, if he goes knight f6, we can just take, and let's say black recaptures. What would be a good way to continue here? Just keep adding in more attackers, and then things generally should always work out.
Yeah. Well, if I take, he's going to take with his queen.
Right.
Not a good take. Add more attackers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to block.
Yeah, rook f3 is a really good move. Because now black cannot really defend the bishop, right? I mean, his queen is defending it, but he cannot add another defender. So there's not much he can do about rook takes f6, then we take this pawn over here, and black's just getting absolutely smoked, right? So that is why black did not take the bishop on h4, but instead of that, black played the move h5. Now, again, do you think we should trade, or do you think we should let black trade?
Um,
Knight f3, perfect. Again, yeah, as a rule of thumb, you generally want to let your opponent trade because then he improves the position of your pieces. So black took on g5. How do we recapture? I mean, do we want to trade the queens or no? Exactly, yeah. We want to keep the queens on the board because we are the ones who are attacking. So black played knight at f1, knight at f8. Now, how do we add in more firepower to the attack here? Rook f1, perfect. We bring in the last attacking piece. And now black played rook to e7. Alright, so here you see that we're really trying to break through on the h-file, right? Because we got a queen and a rook there. That's a lot of firepower. But how do we actually break through? Because this pawn is still stopping us. So rook h to f3 is a really good move. Because black cannot defend this. So white is kind of just crashing through. But there's another really good move, which is the move g4. Because again, we're just hitting this one. And black simply cannot defend. Because always, you know, when he takes on g4, he's just getting checkmated over here. So in this game, black actually just resigned. Because there's nothing black can do about taking here, and white just crashing through, right? Like, let's say black goes... let's say black goes here, for example. How would you continue?
Well, that's going to close the line if I take.
Wait, what do you say? You felt like he's gonna...
taking
okay,
would.
yeah.
But
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we take it to pawn.
Yeah.
Now let's say black does... Let's say black goes here. How would you try to finish it off here? And again, so there's a lot of good moves, but just try to stay on a straightforward path. Pawn takes g6, perfect. We're opening up this line, so let's say black takes with the knight. Queen h7. Okay, let's say black goes here. Yeah, rook takes is good. Let's say black recaptures. Yeah. Let's say black takes. Okay, queen takes g6, yeah, and here white is up a queen for a rook, and we still have a very strong attack, so white is white is very close to winning. Sorry, what?
Diagonal.
Yeah. And one last question, let's say black goes here, right, hitting your queen. We know that the queen cannot move because then your king is in check. But white has a nice solution to this problem. Rook h8 check, perfect. Yeah, we push the king away, and then we take on g7, perfect, with a checkmate. Right, so I hope this game gives you a good idea of how you should play the London, right? How you should put your pieces, and then launch the attack, right? So if we go back real quick to the start.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say we go back to the top, make sure I set it up right.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So generally you want to go for this setup, right, where you put your pawn on d4, you defend it with the pawns on c3 and e3, then you put your knights on f3 and d2, you put your bishop on g3, and we initially bring out our bishop to f4, but in case black challenges it, with bishop d6 we go back to g3, right, because we know that in case black takes, we recapture the h-pawn, and then we can use that half open, then we can use the open h-file to attack, right? And again, like after we've done all of that, then we put the knight e5, strengthen it with f4,
Mm-hmm.
and then bishop h4 to reactivate this bishop. And then after that, very often the rook lift is very effective, right? So yeah, why don't you go ahead, play a game on chess.com, and see if you can put this into practice.
All right. Oh, right now?
Yeah, sure.
All right.